Hi, I'm Tory, and today I'm traveling to Athens, Greece. The Acropolis, or High City in Athens, is home to one of the most famous ancient Greek temples, the Parthenon. This is the Propylaea, the entryway leading to the site of the Parthenon and the other monumental temples. It was built from 1437 BC to 432 BC. Climbing the first flight of the marble steps of the Propylaea leads one up to a vestibule containing 5 gateways, which increase in width and height from the sides to the center. The multifaceted architectural complex, featuring intricate details, contributes to an overall sense of grandeur. The Parthenon was built 1447 to 1438 BC, and its sculptural compositions were completed in 432 BC. The temple was dedicated to Athena Parthenos, whose golden ivy statue once stood in the cella, or inner area. The temple consisted of 8 fluted Doric columns at either end and 17 on each side. To achieve perfect form, its lines were curved to create an optical illusion. The foundations were slightly concave, and the columns were slightly convex to both look straight. The pediments and the friezes were brightly colored and gilded. Following centuries, several offerings were added to the Parthenon. The most characteristic were Roman Emperor Nero's bronze shields, which Alexander the Great dedicated from the spoils of his victory at the Granos River. In the 3rd or 4th century, a fire destroyed the interior of the temple. During the early Christian period around 6th century AD, the Parthenon was converted into a church dedicated to the Holy Wisdom, and in the 11th century AD to the Virgin Mary. During the construction of the Christian apse at the east port, as seen in this drawing, the central scene of the east pediment with the birth of Athena was lost. In 1204, the Frankish Crusaders besieged Athens and converted the monument into a Catholic Church of Notre Dame. When Athens was surrendered to the Ottoman Turks in 1458, the temple became a mosque with a minaret as illustrated in this Core's reconstruction drawing. When the Venetian troops seized the Acropolis in 1687, a cannonball made a direct hit in the interior of the temple that the Turks used as a powder magazine. The explosion blew up the roof and destroyed the long sides of the temple as well as parts of its sculptures, as depicted in this copper engraving by Venetian engineer G.M. Vertimore in 1707. Scotch ambassador of England, Constable Thomas Bruce, 7th Earl of Elgin, caused the most severe damage to the monument from 1801 to 1802. He removed the greatest part of the sculptures that also composed structural members of the temple. By bribing the Turkish garrison of the Acropolis and employing an Italian team, Elgin removed and transported to England 19 pedimental structures, 15 metapoles, and the reliefs of 56 stone blocks of frieze. Today they are on exhibit in the British Museum in London. The explosion that occurred in the 1687 bombardment during the Acropolis siege reduced the Parthenon to ruins. Even though efforts to restore the monument were made during the 1900s to the 1930 period, the use of reinforced concrete and iron joints severely damaged the marble and caused structural problems within the restored sections. Renewed restoration works began on the Parthenon in 1983. On the temple's east side, work from 1984 to 1991 included restoration of the 2 corners of the entablature above the columns, as well as replacement of the original metropoles with exact replicas. The Parthenos restoration projects that ran from 1995 to 2004 included partial restoration of the first 3 northern columns using architectural members whose original positions had been identified, as well as complete restoration of the fourth and fifth columns. The final fluting of the column's new marble infilling drums works remain in progress. The restoration of the Parthenon's north colonnade, which included the dismantling, structural restoration, a reassembling of the 8 middle columns, and overlaying entablature, made it possible to correct mistakes from earlier restoration inventing work on the long walls of the cella beginning in 2011. Following the results of the new restorational studies aimed to define its borders by incorporating all identified members and so define its bounds. After the completion of the inventions, the two walls will be restored as closely as possible to their post-1987 explosion form. While work on the north wall has been ongoing since 2011, restoration of the south wall's orthostates only began recently. Nearby is another temple, the Erechtheion. It is named after Erechtheus, the mythical king of Athens. The construction started before the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC, or after the conclusion of the Peace of Nicaea in 421 BC, and was finished in 406 BC after the interruption of the work because of the war. The peculiar plan of the building is due to the natural irregularity of the ground and the need to house the ancient sacred spots, the salt spring which appeared when Poseidon struck the rock with his trident during a contest with Athena over the patronage of the city. The trident marks the tombs of the Athenian kings, Kekros and Erechtheus. The Erechtheion consists of a rectangular cella divided by an interior wall forming two sections. The eastern section was at a level of at least 3 meters high than that of the western. It was dedicated to the Acropolis and housed the ancient wooden statue of Poseidon, Erechtheus, Hephaestus, and the hero Bautis. At the north side of the cella, there is a porch with 6 Ionic columns. The bases and capitals, along with the frame of the doorway leading to the interior of the cella, have elaborate relief decorations, while the ceiling coifers were painted. The famous Porch of the Maidens, or Caryatids, dominates the south side of the building. 6 statues of young women standing on the podium, 1.77 meters high, support the porch roof. Around the end of the 1st century BC, the Erechtheion was repaired after a fire. During the Christian period, it was transformed into a church, while in the Ottoman period, it was used as a house. In the first years of the 19th century, Lord Elgin carried off the 3rd caryatid from the west and the column of the northeast corner of the building. Today, they have been replaced by copies as well as the rest of the caryatids. Here are the 5 original statues of the caryatids. Also on the Acropolis is the Odeon of Eros of Atticus. It was built on the southern slopes. It features Roman arches and a 3-story stage building. The theater was originally partly covered with a wood and tiled roof. The circular orchestra now has become a semicircle paved with black and white marble. 35 rows, the marble auditorium extends slightly beyond a semicircle with a diameter of 80 meters and today seats 4,680 people. Athens proudly showcases the Greek flag. From its stand, the city below is visible. The Acropolis Museum, opened in 2009, showcases its surviving treasures. The collection's emphasis is on the Acropolis of the 5th BC. Not far from the Acropolis is the Panathenaic Stadium. It was built in the 4th century BC and restored for the first modern Olympic Games in 1896. It was first used as a venue for the Atlantic Athletic Contest. It seats 70,000 spectators around the running track and field. The stadium could only be used for archery and a marathon finish in the 2004 games. Now it is occasionally used for concerts and public events. Thank you for joining me on my tour. Please like and share if you enjoyed the video.